Hey everybody, Warrior here. I was going this weekend and I did get a couple voicemails and a couple text messages telling me that Randy had passed away. But I don't use my phone for any internet stuff and I'm not plugged into the social networking, so I waited till I got home and I thought what I would do is just sit down for a couple minutes and express some of my thoughts. First, I want to extend my condolences to his wife and also to Lanny, his brother, and all the other close relatives that he has. You know, the list of the guys in the business who have died prematurely, it's really, really long, but in many of those instances it's because of dumb, self-destructive behavior. And by all accounts, Randy was healthy, he was happy, he was productive. So to hear that, you know, at the age of 58 he died of a heart attack, boy, that's really surprising. Especially when I think about the size of the spirit Randy had in him for living. I mean, it was huge. He got it about life. He understood the value of life. He knew that each moment was precious and that you shouldn't waste any of it. I mean, his own living, the way he lived his life, being private and reclusive, was evidence of that. There are just some people that you never think you're going to get this kind of news about, and Randy was one of those people to me. When I thought of him, I always imagined him just, you know, aging gracefully. And when I saw the pictures of him last year after he got married, there wasn't anything to make me believe otherwise. Boy, but man, what a powerful and unforgettable impression his Macho Man character made on the hearts and minds of millions of people all over the world. I mean, the outpouring of sympathy and the reminiscing that's going on, it's incredible and it's all genuine. I mean, Randy really did, through that character, he inspired an entire generation of kids. They're now adults, but they were kids. I got so many emails, just tons of them, and they all had the same stories, just in different words. You know, they found out Randy had his accident, they started reading up, and they said it wasn't, but very long before they were literally mentally transported back to the late 80s, early 90s, to when they were a kid then, and with a warm heart, they remembered the joy and happiness they got out of the WWF programming and all the characters at the time. Telling me stories that they had childhood friends or brothers or sisters, and they would each pick a WWF character and they would have their own rivalries and square-offs and battles. And let me tell you, there were plenty of them that were proud to let me know that their Macho Man kicked the crap out of their friend's Ultimate Warrior. So many of them telling me that, you know, with Randy passing, they feel like a chunk of their own life story has been ripped right out of their heart. I mean, that's powerful. And it's not just the pictures that they can see and the video clips they can watch or the wrestling buddies they still have. So many of them talked about the wrestling buddies they still have, grown-ups. It's the feelings and emotions they got that are connected to those times, and when they were reminiscing, they came back to life. There's nothing more powerful than that, man, to remember the times you had as a kid. You know, my whole life is going in a different direction, and read a lot about following your own unique passion and being creative in your life, that it's important to, and in every book that I read about that stuff, there's something mentioned about rekindling the spirit you had as a kid in many ways, and it's true. And that the Macho Man character, the WWF at the time did that for so many people now, is just awesome. It was good stuff. Good stuff. You know, no disrespect to the talent today, but the talent back then was cut from a different cloth. You know, you got a spot if you made a spot. You had to be an innovator. You had to be creative. You had to think for yourself. You had to think on your feet. You had to follow your own lead. You had to have a confidence and belief in yourself that was strong enough to block out any negative or misleading criticisms of what you were experimenting with at the time because of the fear some people in the industry had about the direction wrestling was going. And that was powerful. I mean, there was nobody to hold your hand. There were no babysitters, there was no creative writing staff, there was no costume department, there was nobody to instruct you about how to do promos or what to do in the ring. There was nobody to assist you in amplifying your own natural personality characteristics into becoming one of those larger-than-life characters at the time. You had to do it on your own. Yeah, Vince had the organization in the ring, and the wrestlers probably could have never got it together to do that part of it. But none of that would have happened without these independent, self-reliant guys who were courageous enough to believe in themselves and disciplined enough to do what they needed to do to create one of these magical characters. You know, the business was cut from a different cloth at the same time, too. It's different today, and it is the way it should be today. Times change, people change, new ideas come around, new generations. It's not to beat up on that. But the business was different then, and I'll go so far as to say, and I'll probably get a lot of heat for it, but the fans and the fan base was cut from a different cloth back then. The culture was different. And the fans had a greater sense of decency and reverence for the standard setting that was going on. Standard setting. And the Macho Man character that Randy created and performed, it was a standard bearer all the way through in every single regard. No question, no doubt. And this emotional connection people have to his passing, it's a direct result of that. The reverence they had for what he was doing and what was going on at the time. All the respect he's getting is coming straight out of people's hearts. Of course, I was so fortunate to be in so many great events with him. You know, I don't know what people know today. Everybody's smartened up, but, you know, there were the pay-per-view events that I had with him that were awesome. But, I mean, you would be at a house show the night before and a house show the night after. The road tour schedule back then was just incredible. It was, you know, night after night after night. I remember going out for 40, 50 days at a time. And, but WrestleMania 6, whenever I highlight that as like the most memorable moment of my career, people are real quick to write and tell me, say, Warrior, you're wrong. WrestleMania 7. WrestleMania 7 is the greatest. And it was up there. It was right up there with WrestleMania 6. And in a lot of ways, the behind-the-scenes story of what was going on at the time make it even more incredible. And they talk about politics today. They didn't even call it politics back then. It was just watching your ass on the business end of things. I remember having to negotiate with Randy over how many flying elbows versus how many press slams for the finish. And when I had decided that I wanted to when we ended the match that I would just wanted to put my foot on his chest and raise my arms. I didn't know how he was going to react, but I did. I did. In my gut, I did. He was such a pro, man. Anything for the show to make it happen. And all the things that people have said about him, the detail and the going over things and over things and over things. Being a perfectionist about things, never having a night off. It's all true. Of course, it's hard for me to be impartial. The Wembley Stadium thing, that was a great, when I was thinking about Randy over the last couple of days, I always see him with a cup of coffee. He was never without a cup of coffee. We used to have a competition with one another, see who could drink the most coffee and get the most jacked up. And I remember at Wembley Stadium, we couldn't get as much coffee as we wanted. We wanted it in our own dressing room. So we found an executive dining hall that they had set up for the bigwigs at Wembley Stadium, and we stole this 5-gallon percolator, big metal thing, full of coffee. By the time we went to the ring, there was only a few drops left. Never without coffee. And then the Ultimate Maniac things we did, Ultimate Maniac program that we never got to do. But out of respect for him, man, WrestleMania 3, his match with Steamboat. All his incredible skills are on display in that thing. I mean, he was like a cheetah in that match, just all over. His reaction time and stuff, I think it came from the professional sports and the baseball that he played, man. He was just so quick and rapid and sharp and precise with his movements. I mean, watch that match if you never have. It's one of the all-time classics. All-time classics. I learned so much from Randy. I got to spend so much personal time with him. I remember when he came out to Arizona when things were first starting to happen with Liz. So many private moments just sitting around shooting the shit. He was the real deal. The most I learned from him came by the example that he set, not by him telling me anything. And that was what was really beautiful. I also thought a lot over the last couple of days of something else I remember about his. And it's just it's simple, but it meant so much. His handshake. It meant something. And it embodied the integrity and character he had as a man to me when I think about it. I've spoken before about what a handshake means to me today. I'm a traditional guy, and just some simple things really mean a lot to me. And a man's handshake does. In the business, there's a tradition amongst the boys where they shake hands with one another softly. I'm sure that story's out there already about that. It's been told before. But it's a tradition, and it's an indicator of from talent to talent, whether you work softly or stiffly inside the ring. And I always thought it was kind of odd, kind of weird. But it was a tradition, and I respected it, and I think I've told part of the story why me and Steve succeeded the way we did is because we always had good manners, and we always respected the veterans and what the traditions were. So I respected the tradition, but I think there's probably a lot of other big, powerful, masculine, macho guys who think that the soft handshake is just kind of weird and odd. It's like shaking hands with a dead fish sometimes. Some guys just stick out a finger or two. Not Randy. I mean, I know Randy did that. He was traditional in that regard in the business. He'd come up, he was raised in the business. His dad was one of the boys and stuff. But we didn't shake hands with one another like that. He would come in deep and cup that thumb, and man, he would squeeze, and you could feel the life force in him from his handshake. And it always just made me feel that he was grounded as a man. Just a handshake. I think when a man shakes a man's hand, he should shake it like a man, not a woman. And Randy did. I'll never forget the time I got to spend with him. And I always use those memories to inspire me. As great as the Macho Man character was, Randy Papa was an even greater man. He did the work to be an icon. And he deserves all the accolades he's getting right now about being one. Now, Randy, about this rest in peace thing. You know, I know that's another custom, but I'm just thinking that that's probably not going to work very well for you. Because I got to be honest, the Ultimate Warrior had nothing on you, Macho Man, when it came to intensity. Nothing. Man, you were hardcore. You were always on. You were never off. Always. Wound up like a pressure cooker, man, just ready to explode all the time. You loved the stress and the pressure. You thrived on it. And I loved it too, man. And I loved you for being that way. You made me feel okay to be the way I was. But this eternity at rest and in peace, I know it wouldn't work for me. So I'm going to wish for you sort of like a Mad Max kind of world where things are unpredictable. Survival is by wits, wisdom, and might. A world where you can do there what you did here. Be the absolute best at who you truly were. Who you truly were meant to be on this planet. And not give any thought or attention to what others believed you should be. That, Randy, is your legacy to me. Thanks for the memories, Randy. Thanks for the memories.